started. Hi, everyone. I'm Poorvi. I don't know if you know me, but I lead AI investments at Elevation Capital. Elevation is a venture firm based out of India and US, more than 2.5 billion AUM. Historically, we've been very heavy in consumer tech and fintech investments. We're early investors in Swiggy, Meesho, ShareChat, Paytm, Acco, Spinny, and a bunch of others. Since the last 5, 6 years, we've been investing in SaaS and AI. And obviously, AI is front and center for us now, and we're doing a lot more cross border investments. The reason to get everyone together today was because we wanted to understand what people are doing, honestly. It's more selfish. That there are so many companies, people are trying to build different products, experimenting with stuff. And a lot of our portfolio, whether it's late stage, pre-IPO portfolio or early stage portfolio, they are asking us that, hey, what are other people doing? So we thought that, okay, let's get all the people together, all the builders together, and let's see what people can learn from each other in AI. But I think most importantly, I have Garvit with me. Garvit is the India site lead and R&D head for Glean India. I don't think Glean needs any introduction, but if you don't know it, you should Google. I should not tell you about it. But I'll start with Garvit. Garvit, I think I'd love to know a little bit about your story first, and I'll then come to Glean. I have stalked you enough on LinkedIn to know, but why don't we start from where did you grow up? What's been the story so far?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Anyway, a quick check on hands. Like, how many folks are aware of Glean, the work AI company? All right, quite a bit. So you're right. I was not too sure.
Asked them to Google, that's why.
I see. Anyway, I have had pretty humble beginnings. I grew up in the city of Jaipur in Rajasthan.
I grew up in Kota.
Oh, nice. Yes. Yeah, I do remember, IIT preparation days. We had some, Kota used to be the thing in those years. So anyway, but like, nothing too unusual about my childhood up until 2008 when I joined IIT Bombay in the computer science department. That choice I wouldn't say was very intentional with a lot of agency. It's just like what you do. If like you are a good student and you score well in JEE, of course. But yeah, that started my journey. It transformed sort of my mindset in a lot of ways because you meet so many people from different walks of life over there. And then I've spent 10 years in the US after graduating, first at Berkeley and then remaining 8 years working at 3 companies,
Yep.
Rubrik, Snorkel, and Glean.
Yeah. And all very fascinating companies, right? So I was trying to form a thread of what's common between these companies. Why did you choose to move from Rubrik to Snorkel to Glean? I'll ask you, Garvit, and these are all phenomenal companies, right? And these are companies that a bunch of us actually look up to. If you had to take up one learning from each one of those companies, right? Like special learning that this company is actually known for and something that they were very special at, what would that be? And I'll start from Rubrik.
Right. It's a great question. So for me, the common theme, like to answer that question first, like from a personal point of view, has just been the people, right? In fact, Arvind Jain is the founder of Glean, and he was also a co-founder of Rubrik. So there's quite a bit of shared people in this. And I feel it's a good indicator of lots of things. Like it's a good indicator of the problem space and the business you are after, and your probability of success, of course, which determines how much fun you will have and so on. However, in each of these 3, I did learn very unique things. At Rubrik, I think what Rubrik is good at is it was a play in an existing market,
Yeah.
like not inventing a new space, but you have to be 10x better than whatever exists out there. And to do that, you just need a very solid team that can engineer its way through that at a very high pace. Like that's what we did. We were very good at it, and we cracked through it. And it's still growing. It's still growing. Like just last 6 months,
I like the multiples.
yes, the multiples have been very good. Anyway, so that was Rubrik. Snorkel was very different. It's a research lab originated company, pretty much in the AI, creating a new market entirely. But there, we had this struggle of, hey, you are a bunch of very smart people from Stanford, and everybody wants to work with you, the biggest organizations. but they'll all pull you in different directions, especially if they're these big whales, like in the finance sector or big tech or whatever you're trying to work with. So how do you maintain that balance between, hey, you just do whatever, the Fortune 50 is asking you to do in the 10 POCs you are running and then not end up with a common product, or you hold back, have your own thesis and build something that's going to scale. That was a very interesting challenge there. You have to have speed as well. If you don't do anything, you're not going to learn. So how much do you, what's the real definition of MVP?
Yeah.
So that, and at Glean, it's very interesting. Like, I think my biggest learning is then that you need luck, and being on the right wave just makes an enormous difference. It's a cliched thing people say, like catch the wave, but it happened to us in a very real sense with AI in 2023, because the demand for work AI just appears because ChatGPT is so successful, right? So never underestimate the power of a wave. I'd
Yeah,
say.
no, see, I think a lot of us, and see, I always say that if I was not born, but at least investing in the internet era, I would have done so. Probably in the cloud era after that, but AI era obviously is our time. So I think a lot of folks here are also building AI products or are in AI companies. But I'll hold on to Glean, right? I think Arvind, it'll be helpful for folks who already know about Glean, but a few folks who don't. What does Glean do today? Obviously, the scale is massive. It's one of the fastest AI companies, AI native companies in the world today, globally. But I'd love from you to hear, like, how do you truly define Glean?
Right. So from a vision point of view, like I'll give you a one-liner and then I'll kind of tell you very briefly how our journey has been. So you can think of Glean as someone who has been at your company, like where you work from day one, like has read all possible documents that were written in any enterprise system, has been in all the meetings, knows everybody and like your organization structure, and is available to you instantly at any point of time, right? So if you want to do your work, like you can ask this thing any question, and if you're a new employee, it helps you onboard. If you are a veteran trying to solve a deep bug in your code, like it can trace through the entire history of whatever has happened to help you there. If you're a salesperson trying to sell to a customer, like it can help you using what other salespeople have been doing. Right? So that's sort of the vision we sell. However, our evolution has been, it started with search, right? Purely info-seeking intent. Because we found that even the simplest things of like, where is this document across 50 apps that I use, was an unsolved problem like 4 or 5 years ago. That was the non-obvious insight that Arvind had. I don't think at the time it was a very popular opinion that is going to be a big market, but Arvind held on to it. Again, like founder grit always like pays off. That, and then now the AI thing just was a pull. I don't think it was that intentional. Like, people want an assistant, not just search. Like these are very complementary technologies. Even in consumer, it's already the case. You use Google and ChatGPT or Gemini at the same time, and that's the same experience you would expect in the enterprise.
Yeah. But I think in every company, and obviously we also invest in so many companies, what's that one non-obvious insight that at least you found at Glean and the way it operates or the way it thought about the market, which you've not heard before, or which probably, or maybe it's just like the wave, right? And it held the company together. But was there any non-obvious insight that you personally had at Glean, which you had not thought about before?
Yeah, I think for the PM crowd here, this might be an interesting thing. It's not so much of an insight as an observation, and then it shaped kind of our business strategy. There was a time when like, people used to say PLG is the thing. You have to build an enterprise product that has to be product-led. That's the right way and maybe the only way to have breakout growth. I think AI has completely changed this. Like it has reversed this trend. Now what I see is the Fortune 50 and the Fortune 500 are the first adopters. Like in fact, the smaller companies don't have the data or the money or like the necessity to use these products. So it's not product led. It's much more sales led, if you might want to call it that. It's much more understand large enterprise, and the roadblock that you typically get around, hey, I don't want to send my data to these LLMs is just not there, right? Like it's like we didn't do anything special to remove it, but that's the reality.
You feel that enterprises are adopting to this problem statement that, hey, I don't care if my data goes to LLMs?
I think what they know as a reality is that if they don't do it, like their next door neighbor is going to do it. And then they're going to left behind. That's what drives it. Like, it's not like they don't care. Like, they still want the guardrails and they want all the principles to be there around data security. But but they're not gonna say no, right?
Fair enough. I think another, and this is something that I've heard, and actually a lot of folks had put in their questions as well when they were registering. See, Glean is a company which actually helps you search throughout your enterprise, right? Like, I mean, that's the premise of the company. In a company like this, what's more harder? Like, is it the data infra or actually driving that user adoption? Like, at least how did the company think about it?
Yeah. So I'll answer it in two ways. We do consider, our data infra the way you put it, but the way we put it is the knowledge graph that we build across these 100 plus connectors that we have across enterprise apps as our moat. We put in our sweat and blood into building this. It's a hairy problem. You have to do 50 different things around security and permission awareness and completeness and freshness. However, I do not think this is an unsolvable problem. Like, given enough time, it's kind of known what you need to do. Changing user behavior has been definitively harder. Right? It is harder, right, than solving this problem. People just do what they do every day, right? Like, so expecting them to do something else is going to be difficult. And the way we solve for that is put ourselves where users already are, like where they're doing their work to begin with, and just show up. A very simple example being Slack. Like, that habit is formed, and the way Glean Assistant works is that it can appear in your Slack threads nearly magically.
Yeah.
Like, when it feels like it can answer a question just based on its own knowledge and the context of that thread. Like, so you don't have to wait for someone else to get to it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I was a PM once. So I think changing user behavior is the hardest thing that one can do. But I think, are there any product or design principle that as a team, as a company you held on to, which was a non-negotiable, that, hey, this is how we are going to do things, and that's our philosophy of building our product?
Right. Yeah, there were. Earlier on, that principle was more around, we want to treat our product as a consumer product, much more so as an enterprise product.
Interesting.
Right? So you need the user delight element to be there, no matter what. We will not compromise on that. And even we measured our product in the same ways that you would measure a consumer product, like the daily versus monthly active users.
Very interesting.
And those were our KPIs. And over time, we also realized that we were building a very strong moat around being connected to many systems in the enterprise in a secure way. And that's not something our competitors can catch up with very easily. So once we had that realization, we have since held on to that. Trust and security is a bedrock of what Glean builds on. And we're not going to make compromises on that. And it's hard. Like, when you want to adopt AI, like, you have 50 different things to worry about. Like, I mean, I can list them all, but like, we do worry about them. Like, we don't just ignore.
Talk to us about a few at least. What are your top worries today?
Right. Like, one interesting one is like just model choice. Right? So every company wants to use their own family of models from their choice of cloud providers because they have negotiated their contracts with like the relevant privacy guarantees that they expect, or sometimes they're building their own in-house fine-tuned models and so on. So we have to support a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have the luxury of saying that we'll optimize for one family and we'll work best. So we build our product taking that into account. And secondly, we have to apply safety or data protection / governance in a different way than you would do in consumer. In consumer, it's more about don't talk about abusive content and so on. But in the enterprise, it's about protect PII.
Yeah.
Like, ensure AI is not either hallucinating or inadvertently leaking or tricking the user into revealing
fair.
PII. Not intentionally, but just because it's not a very uncontrollable system. So how do you control this thing? Like, what are the guardrails you need to apply? We think a lot about it.
Yeah, I think one thing that you mentioned has been a conversation among the circles as well, that, hey, how do you build, like, it's so different from SaaS, right? Like, today the enterprise AI companies are getting built like consumer companies. I mean, they're valued like one, but also they're getting built like that, which is fascinating because that was not the true case with SaaS before.
Right. That is correct. Although, I don't know that much about how consumer AI companies are built, like, to be honest. But I would say that there is a little bit of like the reversal of trend that I was pointing to earlier.
Yeah.
Like, in the product itself has to be a very consumerish product because the expectations are like that. but the way you make business is a little bit more traditional than what it used to be. It's not like, here's my product, swipe your credit card, try it, and you will see the value. I do not think that is working in AI products. Like it is a lot more identify what business value you're going to unlock, and then very actively and intentionally target, the business where that's going to happen. Because, and then you have to delight the users end of the day. Like they are eventually the decision maker indirectly, but I don't feel like that's the way to get in.
Now that the way companies are getting built in AI is slightly different, right? Like, how do you see, and I think that's been the main question for this group as well, how is the role of a product manager changing? How many product managers does Glean have today?
Glean has 10
Overall?
or so. Yeah, globally.
That's it?
Yes.
How many, like, and what's the overall
And,
scale of the company?
Yes, we have 100 or so engineers.
Yeah.
10 to 1 is, I think, a pretty solid ratio, I would say. We want to hire everywhere, and then our entire company is 700 to 800, like somewhere in that globally, including all our go-to-market and sales teams.
Wow. 100 engineers, total 700 company.
Yes.
It feels like, and 10 product managers, for the scale that the company is, it still feels small as a team.
Yes. I mean, small teams are able to do a lot. That's another trend.
Yeah.
Right? Like in product building in general today. But yeah.
But Garvit, going back to that question, that at least today, the way you see the teams, which is in India and globally, both at Glean, how do you think the role of a product manager is changing with AI? And I think the side question to this is just in terms of the skills, like pure play hard skills, what do people need to do differently today, at least in from your vantage point?
Right. As a PM specifically,
PM.
right? So, in particular, I feel like the role of a PM at a meta level is evolving from someone who will design requirements to someone who will say design experiments and effectively create the evaluation criteria, right? More so than the product, because the product itself is so fluid, right? Like, think about ChatGPT. It's just a single chat box. It looks like that to an end user, but it does so much, right? When you start interacting with it, like you may not notice every single thing. As an engineer, like I notice a lot, but as a PM, like I think that simplicity is a distinguishing feature of AI products. And you have to stop thinking about like, hey, these are the 50 requirements, or here's my PRD with all the P0s. It's more like here are the 50 things that the user will tell this product, and like this is how it should respond, right? So, and specifically in terms of skills, I think, and in Glean actually we adopt this a little bit. Prompt engineering is not so much for software engineers to understand as it, or maybe it's in equal parts. It's for software engineers as well as product managers. We even have people with the role prompt engineer in our product org specifically.
And what does the background for them look like? Are there more PMs versus more engineers? Like just from...
I think they're a combination of PMs and data scientists, but not software engineers. They're not responsible for writing code or anything like that, right? But as a PM overall, if you understand both the lower bound and the upper bound of the AI system well, it will serve you well. Otherwise, I've seen a lot of PMs like severely being very optimistic or very pessimistic about what an AI can do, and it changes every day as well.
Yeah.
Right. Like new announcements from the AI builders. So like, unless you have that feel for it, I think it's very hard to define the expectations or like set your own goalposts. So yeah, you have to kind of be hands-on.
Yeah. So I think the follow-up question is, then how do you become that hands-on, right? I think almost imagine like people who have been in product management from the last 10 years, right? And the last 5 years have been just very, very different. And the last 2 years have just been very, very different from what product management used to be. So how do you even get to this being an AI PM today if somebody has been in product management for a very long time?
That's a good question. When I can only kind of give some pointers, I don't really know, but I feel like still there are some skills you need to acquire, but I don't think the core PM job has changed. There's a lot of hype around what AI can and cannot do, but if you want to sell in the enterprise specifically, you will only be able to do it if you can crack business value. So your ability to understand how you're going to create value and like where the paycheck comes from,
Yeah.
is not going to change. You have to keep that core. However, in terms of like going to the next level of, hey, what product should I build? Like, what is the first experiment I can design that will get me the next step? I'd imagine just start playing around with both, you know, in even simple stuff like the OpenAI platform to talk to GPT in a more raw form, right? Like that's a more lower level abstraction than ChatGPT itself.
Yeah.
To get a feel for how a model responds and behaves, like do it across different model families. Every time a new thing comes out, like it's very easy to try it out. Like so, you have to get rid of that mental barrier of this is sort of for engineers. Like, it's just not. It's the same way as maybe 5 years ago, AI as a whole was only for ML engineers. Correct. Within SWE.
Correct.
Right? Which I am not, right? By training or by any experience. But today, it's just not the case. Like every software generalist is an AI engineer as well.
Yep.
And so I think it's not that steep a learning curve at all. Like you get a feel for it.
Yeah, I think the other question is just measuring the ROI of some of these AI products, right? And that's been a question that has been asked a lot, that it's very difficult to measure today what does the ROI look like. And when I think about a product like Glean, it's so horizontal. What are some of the metrics that you internally look at? Like how do you measure whether this product is working, not working from an internal team perspective?
Yeah, again, a very good question. Like the answer might be a little bit boring than like, you expect here, but like we do the proven things here. Like and it's a little layered. At the most fundamental level, like we want to know that we have crawled everything that exists in the enterprise and that content is fresh and so on. Like, so we measure that and ensure that's happening. Then when someone uses our product, like we look at user satisfaction or user engagement numbers. In the simplest terms, are they coming back? Like if someone uses a product once in a month, like how many of those users are also using it weekly or daily? Right. So those metrics have been around forever in the consumer space, and they work. But there's a layer above this as well, because this is not gonna convince a business owner to give us $1 million contract or whatever, right? So we have to ensure we are plugging into these enterprise workflows that people understand are either or in a way where we can prove that it saves time for especially cost functions like support, where you can just resolve more tickets than you used to before.
That's very measurable,
right?
But how is search measurable? Like I can search
and
throughout the
this
day.
is the other aspect. Like, and where it's for an audience like engineering, where you don't have measurables like that, you have to rely on user love. Like that ends up being the core of it. And in many cases, end users have championed Glean inside their companies, even when their heads of departments may not have been convinced, because it is an addictive thing. It's naturally saving you so much time every day that you cannot imagine working without it. So now that's a hard thing to get to. Like it's for any product, but like once you get there, like that drives it, and you need to hold on to that. So
is there any customer feedback or user feedback that you received that really blew your mind, that okay, this is what I've been doing, doing this job for?
Yeah, it happens all the time actually. Like this, and now it has become a little bit too commonplace for it to kind of blow my mind. But I remember from a couple of years ago, I don't know if I can name the customers and so on. Some of them we can actually name, but I don't remember which ones. But people would say things like they cannot imagine their life before they had Glean. Or they would move from one company to another and they say like, I basically forced my manager to buy Glean into my new company because I could no longer work after switching jobs. Right? My previous company had Glean and that's a totally different way of working. So, I mean, there's quite a bit of that.
Super interesting. I think, Garvit, you have been at the forefront of AI. Obviously, Glean is at the forefront of AI right now. I'd love to get, and I think this is some conversation. There's so much noise, there's so much hype, but there's actually a lot of real value as well with AI. Today, at least, what are the trends that you see, which are actually quite fascinating for you as an engineer, as a builder, as a person working at one of the global, fast-forward companies?
Right. Again, good question. So one thing, specifically as a builder, I have observed, and this may not be obvious to everybody, is the models and their ability is actually getting better and better and better. Like there was a step function that happened 2 years ago. Everybody saw ChatGPT, there was nothing before it, and now you have something that seems magical. And then maybe after that you could say that, hey, it's been like only incremental. But I don't feel like it's incremental. Like it's more like going from someone who's an undergraduate student or a high school student to an undergraduate student to now PhD level, like on any topic you want to quiz it on. And that really changes what you can really build with these products, and that we see in reality. Like the extent to which it will follow your instructions, the reasoning power that it comes with, right? The world understanding that is inbuilt is growing every single day. And so we have learned to put our trust in the fact that these things become better rather than building for their deficiencies, like you build for their strengths.
Yeah.
Instead.
That's a very fair way to look at it.
And the other thing is more sort of cliched and everybody is talking about is the agentic AI.
Yeah.
And also our friends at Composio would agree with that too.
Yeah.
But it is real. Like, I do feel that way. I don't think it has reached true breakout anywhere in the industry yet. But I am seeing signs of it from our interactions with customers. Like there's clear demand. They want the ability to have purpose-built agents that can solve for specific enterprise workflows that are repeated, that are mundane, very time-consuming, and there's just no other way to do it deterministically. They want these to be solved, and in some cases, it's happening. Like support is a very, very big example. It's already happened.
Yeah.
Like many big banks have reduced their support forces by 20-30%. Like
some
already.
Companies are getting people back as well, as we know,
Yes.
but yes.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, agentic AI is going to be a thing. It'll take a little bit more time, and maybe I don't know who will win. Whether there's one winner in agent platform, I don't think so. Whether autonomous agents versus more hybrid agents, where you kind of control the agent's behavior more so as a workflow, which one is going to pan out better? I don't know, but yeah. It's an interesting trend.
Any contrarian AI hypothesis that you have, which probably people are overlooking today, where you feel that something will happen, but it's just not there yet? I think agents is one, but I think agents is somewhat
It's just
obvious.
very,
it's
very
like
obvious, well
it's
known.
yeah. Anything that you've observed, it could be small, any industry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how contrarian this is, but I do believe that the next shift, specifically in enterprise AI, will actually come from taming complexity or solving some of the boring stuff. And it ties a little bit with how agents work as well. But like, agents in the enterprise are only as good as the systems that they have access to, not just read information, but also manipulate.
Yeah.
And solving for this complexity is hard. Like, you have to go through data quality, you have to go through permissions and building trust with the end users, so that this is doing the right thing, showing you the right result, because there's many critical business workflows where you can't afford mistakes. So yeah, taming that complexity is going to be the next frontier, I think. And yeah, there's people already, including Glean, trying to solve that problem. Much more so than, hey, there's going to be a new sort of superhuman AI that's going to change everything. Like that's sort of my viewpoint, and I don't know how it'll pan out. It's like the only projection.
Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put you on spot now. But I think today, if you were not at Glean doing what you're doing, and you had to build something from scratch, what would you pick? What would that wedge be, and why?
Right.
Or any other company, you could say.
Yeah. It's a good question, right? To be honest, like being at Glean has been so much fun. I have never had the time to even entertain that thought in my mind. But I would say, like, maybe not from my perspective, but from a founder's perspective who's starting in this domain, I'd imagine, like, look for a really mundane and repetitive thing that people do, like, that every company has to go through. And try to automate it end to end with AI. Right? Glean is not that. Glean is a more horizontal platform.
Yeah.
But if you are getting started, I feel like that's a good way to do it. As an example, of a problem which I don't believe is still solved, and I don't even know of companies that are like really looking at it, is onboarding of new employees.
Yeah.
Right? But I do it all the time. Like as the site lead of Glean India, like anybody who joins, like they have to be given a laptop, they have to be assigned a seat, they have to be, all these accounts have to be provisioned for them, they have to be on the payroll. Then of course if you're an engineer, you have to go through the developer onboarding to install the right software and like do the build and like, make your first PR, etc. Right? So, and it's very repetitive and involves so many different parts of the organization to work together. Seems totally solvable, like with an AI agent, purpose built for every company, connected to all these correct systems. So yeah, maybe I have something like, to
I'll
bite
put
on.
this on LinkedIn. I assure you there'll be 5 companies in just 2 weeks, and I'll tell them Glean is ready to pilot.
All right.
Okay, I love to do this. Garvit, I'm going to do a small rapid fire with you. And it's a rapid fire, so you have to be really, really quick. Just 5 questions, and then I'll open it up to the audience to ask their questions. But first question, 1 or 2 AI tools that you use apart from Glean every single day?
Well, it's like a little bit embarrassing, but I use ChatGPT, right? Embarrassing because like why should I use ChatGPT if I have Glean Assistant? Like it should always answer all my queries. But like I have a lot of respect for that product. It's very delightful. It just understands my intent. Like, and we are constantly aspiring to be as good as an assistant as them.
Any other productivity tool that you use apart from Glean and ChatGPT?
I of course, as a software engineer, I still write a lot of code.
Yeah.
So a lot of the coding stuff, but in different ways. Like not in the obvious IDE way, but more like, okay, solve my review workflow or create this entire PR from scratch. Either, you can build sometimes I'll build a Glean agent that will do that for me. Or I've been experimenting with Claude code last few days. So that would be the other category of tools. I feel like AI for software engineering is going to go big. I'm very, very bullish on that industry as a whole. It's only scratching the surface, but that is where one place where I actually feel like this dream of I have an AI teammate on my engineering team is going to come true. Seems tractable.
Very interesting. I think this is a question that is asked a lot by PM especially, that is AI first versus AI enabled? Does the distinction even matter?
Today absolutely matters. If you make it non-distinguishable, you won't succeed in today's world. All the model builders like OpenAI and Anthropic would tell you that don't distinct because that's like their business is to make the distinction go away. Correct. But it's not the reality today. AI enabled is the right way to go. Not just because what AI can and cannot do from a capability point of view, like changing the way the world works, like how people and businesses interact with each other and how these institutions like the government and regulators and maybe malicious actors also existing in the system need to just live and operate together, that is harder to change. So I think the adoption will definitely be more AI enabled as a whole, if broadly speaking.
Very interesting. I think again a question that PMs care a lot about. Any product which you can think of which has the best AI product, which has the best onboarding, and you can't name Glean.
We are still working on our onboarding, so I wouldn't have anyway. So good. I would say Claude.
Okay.
I prefer ChatGPT as my go-to thing, but I feel like Claude just has a more human-oriented personality, and when you start on it, it feels like a real person you're kind of trying to talk to, but still grounded in many ways. I try to. And at Glean, I would encourage PMs to learn from what they do.
Okay, very interesting. One AI thinker that you actively follow, apart from Arvind.
I was going to say Arvind.
No, that's not allowed.
All right. It's a good one. Yeah, maybe another. I'd say 2 names from 2 points of view. One is Dario Amode, again, Anthropic and Claude. But not from the point of view of building Claude, but from the point of view of how to think about this meta problem of you might want to call it AGI or superhuman intelligence, and how we will get there, whether we will get there, and what sort of safety and alignment issues you need to solve.
Yeah.
Right? So I think he's a very solid thinker in that domain, and I really like his approach. He's not a hype creator at all, which many of the other AI kind of leaders end up being a little bit. So I like him. And at some point, I was also kind of following Jan LeCun from Meta.
Yeah.
Much more so from the technical
Research perspective.
research, or like from the point of view of like, hey, is the transformers neural architecture like how much runway does it have left?
Yeah.
Right? And he of course has a viewpoint like many, I don't know if PMs, but engineers are aware of the fact that like he feels it's not, and it's something to think about like in the context of whatever else is happening. So yeah, I do read what he writes.
Very interesting. No, amazing, amazing thinkers. I think one last question. Any advice for, all spectrum of PMs, whether you're an early stage PM or you've been in the industry for a very long time, one advice that you would have in the mind?
I don't know, but I think, like I said, I might have mentioned this before. Always, the fact that you have to solve for a real business problem just remains. Like that has not changed with AI. Maybe you just constantly keep reminding yourself of that. Because I do feel like a little bit of that mistake, you might call it, had happened in the last 2 years. Like where you feel like you're overly optimistic, you think it can do anything, and you rely a lot more on the vision or the sell of what it can do rather than the real business problem that it will. And this is for enterprise, by the way, right? Where it matters a lot more. So yeah, I would say like be grounded by that.
Yeah. And keep experimenting, I guess.
Right, and keep experimenting. So, and AI products are also very different from traditional products in some ways, and maybe you have to adopt that a little bit more. Meaning, like it goes from, a search engine. Like you would expect it to be a clean interface, predictable. It kind of does what you expect it to do. But an AI product is more like it's invisible, it's contextual, it's just there for you and it understands your intent. But it may not be very predictable anymore. So I think that a little bit of mindset shift there would help.
Yeah. Now I want to open it up if there are any questions, and obviously hot takes are welcome. So yeah, feel free. I think there's a mic here. Here.
Hey, hi Garvit. Yash here from SpinFlow. Thanks a lot for the insightful session. I just had one question for you. You gave a very interesting analogy that, look at AI from a consumer product lens, right? The metrics or stuff to measure is from a DAU, MAU standpoint. That's what you were talking about. I believe it makes sense for a product like Glean, which is more horizontal. But what would you talk about, vertical AI products which are coming out? What sort of metrics would you recommend that, should be measured? Should we look at it more from a SaaS lens? That's the analogy I'm trying to come at. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, vertical business are good businesses to build with AI, first of all. And how I'd measure it is, vertical products are generally easier to measure, I would say, because you are operating in an industry where the industry knows what it cares about most often. And you have to align your measure to just that industry, right? Like, as an example, again, if you're selling to customer support, like if you're building an agent like that, there's 2 or 3 things they care about constantly. How many tickets is one engineer resolving in a single day? And what is the satisfaction score, the NPS score that my customers rate me at? Your product has to make that better. And like AI enabled, I still feel is the right way, rather than pitching it as, okay, I'll replace your customer support force. Eventually, some of that effect happens because if you make people more productive, they can do more. But yeah, you have to tie what you're measuring to just the industry. I don't think that has changed at all.
Hey, Garvit, thanks for the session. Nikhil here from Open House. I think one thing that you mentioned was, the onboarding flow for AI, especially for consumer side businesses or for non-technical users. How do you really help them understand what are all the capabilities that they might have. And maybe at Glean, the parallel would be that, hey, we actually have all of this other capability or all of this other information that you can ask us, but maybe you're not. And I think for consumer businesses, that might be more important, especially with ChatGPT, at least I feel that, because, I see some folks use it in, let's say, a email improve my grammar style manner, which might be very popular, whereas other folks are like, getting their whole day's work done in a few hours, or like in an hour, and chilling just because they know some additional capabilities out there. And how do you really expose those features out there?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, at least at Glean, we think of it, we do try to apply the principle of progressive disclosure, where you can't throw the world at an end user all at once. They would not know what to do with it. But you can progressively do it. And you have to find the right entry points for which it makes sense. So as an example, Glean is very useful when you are going to a meeting that you don't have any context about, right? Like somebody put a meeting on your calendar, like you have a little bit of description, maybe a linked document, you know the people who are a part of that meeting, and you feel a little unprepared, or especially if it's like you're meeting your customer and you don't know enough about them, what you do. So Glean is a good tool for that, like it can help you prepare, but we only disclose that capability in the context of when you are actually joining that meeting. So like I won't go into the technical details of how you do it, but we know that this user at this point has that intention, and therefore we sort of show ourselves and like ask them to do it. So, and the Slack is a good example where the user is not even aware of your existence, but they asked a question, let's say on an engineering help channel, and they pasted a stack trace that the bug they're facing. And as Glean, we have a high confidence answer to it because the stack trace is seen several times before in the company corpus. So we give that answer. So, that capability is not known to you if you're going to Glean very reactively, right? Where you're going to the chat box and like you're typing all this prompt of this is the bug I'm facing and can you tell me what's going on? But like your instinct is to go to Slack. Progressive disclosure is what I would say. But at an enterprise level, which is different from how do you do it at a user level, like agents, I feel like is the way to go. Where enterprises have this 50 different requirements that they're always thinking about, that they want to solve for IT use cases. They want to automate all their IT help flows or they want to make an HR bot that lives in their intranet portal, helps you apply for leaves and PTO and whatnot. So you know that, and you discover those. That's a different process, or that's a different kind of game you have to play. And then you help them with these purpose-built agents where they put in their enterprise history and context to some extent, and then you have a lot of intelligence and access to data that you help them achieve that thing. So that's progressive disclosure at the enterprise level, maybe a little.
Hi Garvit, Pujita here. Great show. I have a question regarding AI voice agents. What's your take on AI voice agents? And apart from customer support, what other use cases do you see in this AI voice agent space?
Yeah, I think voice agents are, we have been thinking about it at Glean as well, quite a bit. In fact, one of the use cases that we talk about personally is commute for every single employee at work. You are on your commute and most of the time you can't do much because you're driving your car. But if you have Glean Assistant that you can talk to, you can actually get prepared for your day, as a part of that. Glean Assistant can tell you what had happened in the last day in your morning to essentially a news update. Or you can ask it questions about a meeting that you are going to be a part of right next and get prepared. So that's a little bit of an anecdote because we haven't actually built this yet. I would say more broadly, I feel like voice applies in consumer a little bit more than enterprise. I do believe that. Enterprise, there are fewer opportunities where voice as a medium is like clearly better as compared to text as a medium. So I don't know, like maybe not the answer you were hoping for, but
I can add a few, like at least the companies that are coming in the space. I think outbound sales is a very, very big, reason for voice agents because it makes sense. Those initial calls that you need to do, and the reverse as well. That hey, the first call, the missed calls. That if you're let's say you're in a trade service, you're in a HVAC, plumbing, etc. There are multiple calls that's coming to you. Can you have the first speed to response, right? And that really matters to the business. I think the other examples are language learning. I think voice agents are so good for language learning, and I'm pretty sure, especially from India, I think we will see a lot more interesting companies coming up in that space.
Thank you.
Yeah, hello, Garvit. I have a list of questions, but I'll start with the first one. So, as an enterprise company, how difficult it was to crack your first customer, especially when the product is you don't have any such results and you don't have data to kind of train over, and you are not sure about the error rate. So, how was that journey?
yeah, good question. So our first product as a company was actually a search product, right? Enterprise search, and then AI assistant was our second product. So are you more curious about one or the other? Because the answer is different.
Yeah. You can start with the first. Yeah.
Sure. For the search product, data and error rates were not that relevant in the sense that, we knew how to build the technology.
Okay.
Like we had a lot of people who had built Google search, like who were founding members of the team at Glean. It was more around how do you find the need, because it's a non-existent market at that point. It's not a line item in like IT spend that already exists that you can play into. So like you have to create, or you have to find the right initial customers where they will have the need, plus they will be able to give you the necessary feedback that lets you grow from there. So yeah, mid-sized companies, as is the typical answer, worked for us. Network effects help a lot. Like, so the founding team members knowing their friends who work at all these other companies, like who are ready to pilot. So it's a more traditional answer, but once you have that going, like you can set up a flywheel from there. Like the product is working, and like in these first 5 design partners, they are very happy. Then your storyline changes. Like then you don't go in from an exploratory point of view. You go in from like, hey, this is a problem we are solving, and like we can bring you X, Y, and Z productivity events. So you should do it. For the AI assistant, it was very different. Like there was no push from Glean. It was absolutely pull from our existing customers. Like, to them, it was obvious that search cannot be the only way to access enterprise data. You have to have a chat-like interface. And like they were asking us to do it. Like we were slower than like what our customers were expecting of us actually.
As you have led to the agentic AI thing, one of the key things that I personally face, maybe I'm doing something wrong, is the price thing. How to make sure that, because you're using multiple API calls and everything to do a singular task. So, and if you want it good, the quality of the workflow to be good, sometimes the price rises. So how do you kind of manage the quality is to price ratio?
Yeah, I don't think this question is easy to answer because it really depends on the context, right? If the problem you're solving is worth a lot to your user, like they will pay for it, right? But how do you tell what's worth what? Like I don't think anybody can answer that. Like you as a founder would have the best. But what we have also found is, at least initially when you're starting up, this may not be a real concern because yes, when you want to make a business, you have to have the right pricing strategy that has to be there. However, in absolute cost terms, it's you have to have a meaningful usage before these become a real issue of like, hey, I'll run out of money as a company if I use O3 constantly or and so I don't know. Like the question, answering this question at a certain scale versus as a founding stage of a company is going to be different.
Okay. I think
I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you. Kevin.
Hi Garvit, thanks for your inputs. I'm Arvind from Salesforce. So, as you mentioned, enterprise search did not have a very popular or successful product until recently. But as a problem statement, it was pursued for a long time, right? Microsoft or Google have had cracks at it. You mentioned about the convergence or the wave of AI supporting it, but if you can expand upon, let's say, SaaS itself is a good platform on top of which some enterprise search efforts are successful now versus earlier it wouldn't have been successful, right? So, what are the other converging factors that you see which led to this?
Specifically, specifically for search, what we had observed is that yes, this problem was thought about forever. In fact, Google search tried to build an enterprise equivalent, like, I think 20 or 30 years ago, as a box, literally, that they were shipping to this company, put in your data center. It never worked. And there was a small mind share of this problem in the industry forever. But it was small. That's what I meant by, okay, it's not a big line item in anyone's budget to spend on enterprise search. And yes, Google and Microsoft were building products, but they were not really working. The inflection point was massive SaaS adoption. So, which causes two things. One, tool explosion. Every company now has 50 different tools that they're operating across. So, the problem becomes worse and worse and worse very gradually over time without people really realizing intentionally that, hey, now it's hard for me to find information. And secondly, these tools play in this API ecosystem that is easier to interconnect than it was before. So with this Google's enterprise box, like they would have you write all the scripts to transfer your data from your other servers and whatnot, CRM systems into your enterprise box because every company is different. But with SaaS, every company starts looking the same because everyone uses Atlassian, Salesforce, the Google stack, Microsoft stack, which have well-defined APIs. And that's, I think that caused the big jump for Glean because we leveraged that at the right time.
And looking forward from, let's say, Glean's perspective, which are the biggest North Stars or exciting things that you're looking towards? So, as an example, proliferation of SaaS is something that you mentioned. Now there is proliferation of agents from different players in the ecosystem, right? So, a given enterprise could have, not right now, but let's say in a year or two, a lot of agentic proliferation as well. So, along these lines or any other lines, like what are the most exciting things that you're looking forward to?
So I think the agent for X trend, it is there, it has existed, but I don't believe that trend will be successful. Like again, personal opinion. I don't think, I feel like this tool proliferation problem is already there and people have realized it. So it's not like they're going to be open to having 50 more tools. Like every single tool having its own AI agent that now is a new way of working with that tool. So I think every SaaS company is launching that, but my belief is that's not going to work. Like you have to be intertwined in existing workflows. Very simple example being these IDE agents. Like you're already writing code and it helps you right there in a proactive fashion without breaking anything about how you are doing your work. It's not introducing a new entry point. So that's how I would actually think it'll go. And it's the harder path. It's much easier to build an agent for X as a new thing. But like we have, founders will have to solve the harder problems of being where the users already are, being invisible, but very contextual and interpreting what they want to do, and having AI make their jobs far easier than were before.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Garvit. Really helpful session. Guys, please enjoy the food, drinks, and hope you find a lot more commonality amongst all of you. I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Maxim. I think Vaibhavi is here somewhere. I can't see her. But yeah, Vaibhavi is the founder of Maxim. Her team is here. It's actually a very interesting tool for product managers to help you test and evaluate all the production stuff that you're doing in AI. So catch the team here if you're around. Composio, I don't know if the founders here, they were fixing something on the product, but it's a tool to build agents for tool-to-tool calling. And obviously, product folks are just our friends and product community. But thank you. Thanks for being here.